Welcome to the 5K Yarns podcast with BILLO. This is a podcast where the finish line is just the beginning of the story. Every Saturday morning, all around the world, people like you and me gather to walk, jog or run, or just cheer from the sidelines. Guests I have conversations with attend these parkruns. It's formed an important part of their weekly routine. Some attend with their dogs, with prams, with their mates, and even with their families. Some just like to do it by themselves. Some chase PBs, some chase community, and some just chase the post-run coffee. After all, that's what it's all about, right? This podcast will share their stories with you. Each episode I sit down with everyday parkrun heroes to hear what this little 5K means to them. Because behind every barcode, there's a yarn worth telling. Lace up, sit down, tune in, and let's go for a run together. Now, before I introduce my guests, we should go and cover the disclaimer. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on the 5K Yarns podcast with BILLO belong solely to the host, which is me, and my guests, and do not reflect the views of any affiliated organisations mentioned, sponsors, or partners. The content shared on this podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only, and should not be considered professional advice. Listener's discretion is advised, especially as the topic may include some strong language and sensitive material. Now let's get on with the podcast. Hi everyone, BILLO here. Now before we get started, I introduce my guest. This is take two. Due to technical difficulties, we've had to obviously reconvene and make another time to record. So let's get on with it. So my guest today played an important part in me getting involved in Parkrun from the very first event. At the time, he was the event director and the run director on the day I decided with my family to try Parkrun for the very first time at my home parkrun in Murray Bridge in South Australia. He has a very interesting story to tell about his own experience with having to work through a difficult time dealing with a back injury that could have quite easily ended his running aspirations, let alone his ability to walk. It has been a challenging yet, I find it, inspiring journey, and this is why I invited him to share his journey on our podcast today. He started his parkrun journey on the 21st of March 2015. He has completed 145 parkruns at 8 locations, with one of these being in the UK, where he attended his very first and only international event to date at Burgess Parkrun on the 12th of August 2017. The balance of his parkruns, which is obviously 144, have all been in South Australia, so I think there's plenty of scope for him to do a bit of parkrun tourism. He has volunteered 104 times at 3 locations. He's attended parkrun on 235 occasions. His PB was on the 14th of July 2018 with a time of 22 minutes 44 seconds at Murray Bridge. His current average finishing time is currently sitting at 30 minutes and 7 seconds, which in itself is still a very respectable finishing time. He is also a New York full marathon finisher. He is none other than Damien DAMO Brown, athlete 1538796. G'day, Damo.
G'day, Billo. Thanks for having me.
Mate, it's good to have you come back again. I know that our first crack didn't work out too well, so look, we can cover some new ground. We can recover the same ground. It's entirely going to be up to how this rolls. So, for the benefit of everybody, what made you get into parkrun?
So it's been 10 years now. But before I joined Parkrun, I used to do sprints training on Saturday mornings with my old mate Michael Coulter, affectionately known as Herc. So Herc and I used to catch up on a Saturday morning and just do sprints training together, and that was always fun. Tough slog, but enjoyable. And at one point, Herc made a mess of his knee, and then shortly after that, I had a birthday dinner. Family was there, Herc was there, And Herc mentioned that he'd injured his knee and wouldn't be able to do sprints for the foreseeable future. And then my auntie Linda and cousin Ali said, "Oh, come and do parkrun with us tomorrow morning." And I went, okay. What's parkrun? Which feels ridiculous to say now.
It sounds odd, doesn't it?
It does, but rolled up the next morning to Murray Bridge Parkrun, and I'd never done a long distance run before. I'd just been doing sprinting, and managed to smash out the 5K with my little cousin Jack in about 27 and a half minutes, and I thought, okay, might stick with this.
And you haven't been the same since, have you? Well, you've had a bit of an interesting story along the way, which I obviously touched on in the introduction. So obviously this involved you, but before we get to that, obviously you've got involved. So what's happened to Herc? Is Herc still involved in parkrun with you, or has he just disappeared into the shadows?
He did once. So he actually got into bodybuilding, and he put on quite a lot of muscle. It was really impressive, and he competed in bodybuilding competitions, and he found that once he built up muscle around the knee, it actually really helped. And he did make 1 or 2 appearances at parkrun, but apparently cardio is not friends with bodybuilders.
No, generally not. You're sort of competing at opposite ends of what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned there, you also, on the very first day, I recall you were the run director, but I also found out that you were the event director. And obviously through my research and obviously the time that I was involved with Parkrun in Murray Bridge, I learned that you weren't the founding event director. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so when I started Parkrun, I think it had only been around for 6 months or something like that. And it had been founded by Sarah Pixley. And she was carrying a lot of the load by herself. And one day she announced during the pre-run briefing that she was looking for 1 or 2 people to step into her shoes, basically, and learn the ropes. So I put my hand up for that. And I kind of...
So was that initially as a run director?
Run director, yes. Yep. So, I learned how to do that, and it looks really scary, but once you step into it and get the hang of it, it's pretty straightforward, even more so nowadays. But back then, it was a little bit more involved with all the technical side of things, which is not my strong suit, but I still got my head around it. And yeah, I quite enjoyed it. It was a good experience. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, look, I know when I began late October of 2017, you were very relaxed and very confident in the way you went about it. And I guess my first impressions is that, you'd been doing it for years. So I guess at that point you probably had been, given the fact you started, in March of 2015. So you've definitely, in all honesty, even still very well respected within the parkrun and running community there in Murray Bridge. You've certainly carried it on. So let's progress forward more to current times. I touched on the challenging time that you had in your life with your back.
Yes, that's quite a story. But when I started parkrun, I'd already had issues with my back in the past with bulging disc, which, for any listeners who don't know what that is, it's so in your spine, in between all the little individual bones, is a fleshy cushion which is called a disc, and those discs are quite prone to bulging and pressing on nerves and causing all sorts of problems all over the body. And then what can also happen is when the disc bulges and starts causing problems, the muscles around it start to tense up, which is your body's defense mechanism to protect injured areas. And that defense mechanism tends to do more harm than good. And that's where the back pain comes from. Your muscles tense up, and then the muscles around it are having to do more work and work they're not designed for, and it's just a whole domino effect. And I was getting pretty severe back pain from that. And so it was just something I managed and just kept on top of with chiropractic treatments and physio and things like that. And I was able to run without too much pain. And then 2018, at the start of the year, I signed up for the New York Marathon. And I just thought, the marathon was at the end of the year, so I thought, I've got all year to train for this, but I also have to be careful not to upset that injury. And got through it with no problems, ran a marathon, and I thought, okay, I think I'm on top of this. And then took a bit of time off, had a bit of a break, and then at the start of 2019 started to get back into things and got a bit overconfident in what the human body can do, let alone an injured human body. And that disc bulge got a lot worse, and I was suffering a lot of back pain and struggling to move. So walking was enough of a challenge, let alone running. So just battled that throughout that whole year, and it was just it felt like I'd slowly make progress, and then all of a sudden I'll be back to square one. So it really felt like a case of one step forward, two steps back. And then sort of at the end of 2019, my doctor sent me for nerve root injections, which is where they put a big needle right into the spine. And
that sounds pretty gnarly.
Yeah, I'm not good with needles at the best of times. That one was next level. Like, they actually give you a local anesthetic before they put the needle in, which so they did that, and they inject steroids directly into the affected area. And it took a while, but it seemed like things were settling down. And then right at the start of 2020, I caught the worst cough I have ever had before or since. And just kind of one morning woke up. It was about 2:00 in the morning. I woke up in the middle of this huge coughing fit, and I had this really sharp pain across my lower back. I went, oh no, don't tell me I've coughed so hard I've undone all that work. But then sort of managed to go back to sleep, woke up, no problems. Oh, okay, good. All seems to have settled down. So I got up and went about my day, and then I just noticed that if I just sort of leaned forward a little bit, I think I was driving, and I was at an intersection, and I leaned forward to see if there was anything coming, and my left hamstring really tightened up. I thought, that's interesting. Yeah. And it was just throughout the day, it was just a little bit tight, not sore or anything. And there was still a little bit of pain in the back. So that night I went and got treatment done on my back and walked out of the clinic absolutely pain-free in my back. Like, back was cherry ripe for the first time in ages, and the hammy was still just a little bit tight. I thought, okay, well, this is the best I've felt physically for a long time, so I'm taking that as a win. And then woke up the next morning, and my left leg was just, parts of it were just numb. and any parts of it that I could feel were in white hot agony. And I just thought, oh my God, no back pain. Oh, the leg. Oh, okay, that's going to be a problem. So
It would have been a pretty scary time and pretty experience to go through, though, surely.
yeah, because when I woke up and it was just kind of there, I had no idea what was going on, because you don't, when your leg is in that much pain, you don't go, oh, there must be something wrong with my spine. So yeah, it was very, very confronting, having that level of pain and numbness and having no idea what could have caused it. But yeah, after a couple of visits to doctors and whatnot, it was determined that I had sciatica, which is where the bulging disc started bulging so much that it was pressing on the sciatic nerve, and I basically lost control of my left leg. And then went and got an MRI scan and saw a neurosurgeon, and he said, yeah, look, surgery is an absolute last resort. We want to exhaust all other options first, because the results of surgery can be hit and miss. It doesn't always work. So we just tried everything, and yeah, the surgery was the last option remaining. And then I said to the neurosurgeon, all right, so how long is it before I'm likely to be able to run a marathon again? He just sort of went, oh, well, marathons are kind of, only a very small amount of people are capable of running marathons. So
What's the percentage? It's like 2% of the world's population have only ever tried to run a marathon. So it's a very small percentage. I know
it's
that.
very small, yeah. Yeah, just like that phrase, how long does it take the average person to run a marathon? The average person doesn't run a marathon.
No, they're the ones that are looking at you saying, why? Why would you even bother?
Yeah. And so, yeah, he just sort of went, hey, maybe try swimming or cycling instead. I went, that's not what I wanted to hear. So, yeah, and then I was put on a waiting list for the surgery, and then was given an absolute cocktail of prescription pain medication to cope with that in the meantime. And it was at that time that the parkrun community really came to the fore, as it tends to do, because there was a parkrunner by the name of Mark Gibbons who found out what I was going through, and then a physio had actually recommended that I walk laps of a swimming pool so that I can keep moving, and then the water gives you that weightlessness, so you can move around without so much pain. So Marg and her partner Dave Trenham opened up their swimming pool and their home to me, and they did so much for me. Like, it's unbelievable what they did for me.
So is Mark and Dave still involved in the community there in Murray Bridge?
Not in Murray Bridge. They've moved to Adelaide.
Oh, okay.
We do miss them here in Murray Bridge, but yeah, they're still involved in Parkrun.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll hopefully get up there and visit them before too long.
So where are they located now?
I forget.
Is it a parkrun you've done, Damo?
Yeah. They're up, I think, Modbury way somewhere.
Oh, okay. So probably Lock Hill or something would be their closest parkrun.
Somewhere up there, I think. Yeah. I'll have to double check with them so I can go and.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, moving on. So that played an important part in at this stage you hadn't had your major surgery, is that right? It was before that?
Yeah, it was before all that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was basically I was spending a lot of time in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was ever going to walk again. And
as a young party animal, like you, young fella, that would have been very, very, very tough.
it was. There are no words for that.
Watching those Port Adelaide games and screaming at the TV on flat on your backs probably doesn't do the game justice either.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing though. Like, this happened as COVID was kicking off. Mm-hmm. So while I was bedridden, that was when lockdown started.
Yeah.
So there was no footy on telly or anything like that, and I actually had someone message me saying, "Oh, I guess you don't have to worry about fear of missing out now because we're all missing out." So
through that, it was definitely a tough period of time, let alone with what you were going through.
Because I was in lockdown before it was cool.
Mm.
I really didn't notice the pandemic. I was like,
was that because of the cocktail of drugs that you were on as well, or not?
Oh, that played a part. But it was a bit weird, like hearing about people being effectively trapped in their homes while I was trapped in my bedroom.
It's so you were double trapped, really, in that respect. Definitely a tough time in our lives, and I think the next generation, if we explain to them that period of time where we all had to live through a pandemic and what was involved, they'd be like, "Nah, no way, that didn't happen." Surely. So your operation, what was the outcome with that?
So when I was put on the waiting list, I was put on like the top tier of priority. So I wasn't waiting that long. I think it was 6 weeks or something.
Okay.
And yeah, so they did what's called a micro discectomy, where they trim back the bulging disc so that it's not pressing on anything. And they said, we'll do this operation. If it doesn't work, we'll have another go at it. And if it doesn't work after 2 attempts, then it's spinal fusion, which is where they remove the disc altogether, replace it with an artificial one, and bolt the bones either side together. So does that limit the movement at all, or? I think so. They were pretty keen to avoid that.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, the first when I went in for the first discectomy, when I woke up, I was already feeling a lot better, and I thought, oh, okay, I think it's worked. And they told me 6 weeks of bed rest, 3 months of light duties, away you go.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, that's not too bad. And then I think I was about 5 weeks into the 6 weeks of bed rest, and I was just walking through the house, and the doorbell rang, and then the dog started going berserk. And she's just a little dog, so I just out of habit bent over to grab her, and as I bent over, I went, "Oh, why did I do that?" And I stood back up again. I thought, doesn't feel like anything happened, so I might have dodged a bullet there. But about an hour later, it kicked off. I'm like,
Yeah. Okay. So you didn't dodge that bullet, did you?
What's that?
You didn't dodge that bullet, did you?
No, I certainly did not, because I went back to the doctors, had another MRI, which showed that the disc had come back again. So they said, yep, we'll have another go at the microdiscectomy, but this time...
you had two of them?
Yes, I had 2 of them.
Wow.
So Yeah, this time around, I don't think I was as high up on the list of priorities because I was waiting a lot longer. So,
and obviously during this time, this is still during the pandemic.
yeah, because it was so the first operation was in March.
Yeah.
And then the second one was in August. And
Of the same year.
yes, yeah, both in 2020. And it was the one in August where I went into the hospital for what do they call it? Pre-admission, where they kind of run you through what's going to happen and do a few tests and things. And yeah, rolled up to Flinders Medical Centre for that. And there was a line out the front of people waiting to get a COVID test. Like they had a testing clinic set up there, and there were people in masks standing 1.5 meters apart in the queue. And I thought, oh, it's real. It's actually happening. Wow.
So was that your first exposure to that type of environment?
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, wow. So you were pretty much like in a little cocoon for that time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And yeah, went and had the second operation and woke up from that, and I could still feel the nerve pain down my leg. I thought, oh, it didn't work, did it? But then the surgeon came in and said he was pretty happy with how it went. I thought, okay, well, if you're happy, I'll take it. And yeah, so again, they said 6 months of bed rest. So 6 months, 6 weeks of bed rest, 3 months of light duties, good to go. That recovery took 3 years.
Yeah, and that was a long time.
Yeah, absolutely nothing went to plan. And
how's your mental health with all this at this point in time?
Oh,
were you struggling a bit?
Oh, yeah, for sure, because I've always been the type of person to try not to take anything for granted and, you know, try and make the most of every day. And I've always kind of been cognizant of we all have a limited amount of time. All we really know for sure is our time will run out. We just have no idea when. So make the most of what you've got. Yeah. So then...
So prior to all this happening, so I've sort of backtrack a bit for the benefit of the listener, Murray Bridge Parkrun, you handed the control as event director over to Wendy and
Amy.
Amy, that's right, Amy.
Yes.
So that was right at the beginning of that, yeah?
Yeah, so, that's right, yeah. So the plan was because I'd been event director for, I think, about 4 years. So I was at Murray Bridge Parkrun every Saturday for that period.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I handed over to Amy and Wendy. I thought, okay, I'm going to go check out some other parkruns. And it was less than a week later that I woke up with sciatica. So, yeah, there went that idea.
So your timing in that respect probably couldn't have been any better. But in saying that, I know the parkrun community in Murray Bridge at the time, it was never really a struggle to get the volunteer roster filled. It was pretty good community. I know I was still there at that point of time, and there was quite a few regulars that would actively get involved in volunteering. So that surely would have made the process of handing over a lot easier for you as well.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons why I did it. We were in a really healthy spot in that respect. We've always been a smaller event. We get pretty small crowds compared to other park runs, but
the average is what, between 50 to 100 depending on the time of the year?
Yeah, so in the warmer months I think we're averaging around about 60, and then through winter 30 to 40.
Yeah.
But we rarely had trouble filling the volunteer roster. That was, we had a really strong group of volunteers, and yeah, we've never had to cancel an event due to lack of volunteers or anything like that.
That's brilliant. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah, I really appreciated people getting involved.
So the 3 years that you weren't running, obviously, and you're recovering and so forth, you were able to walk and things like that. You're still able to do that. You're still involved in the parkrun community at that time in the volunteering capacity?
I did kind of drift in and out throughout that time as a volunteer. But, yeah, it was... I did... And I volunteered at other events as well. The events that the legendary Morgan Cool puts on.
One of them being the very first Murray Bridge Marathon, which I participated in, and I know on that particular day you were one of the people volunteering on the aid station, and I recall having a conversation with you, and as much as it was challenging with you to be there, obviously because of your injury and so forth, you still put a smile on your face, and you made everyone feel very comfortable as they were coming through there.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that. Because I wanted to stay connected with the community, but it was just really difficult to watch everyone kind of run past. So yeah, there were times where it was just too much. And
you would have felt like Brian, mate, no doubt. I mean, I know I probably would have if I was in your shoes, for sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting a bit misty just talking about it now, but
that's understandable.
Yeah, understandable. It was a tough pill to swallow.
So how is your running going now? I know that you're back at it, which is absolutely awesome. And obviously, since all this has happened, the original Murray Bridge course ceased to be in the location where it is. Firstly, to my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a combination between the council wanting to redevelop the Wharf Precinct area, but it was also because of the flooding as well a couple of years back. Is that correct? And it's relocated to Narooma Wetlands, which is a little bit further south as you head down the Murray towards the Murray mouth and the lakes area, I guess you could say, but it's still in Murray Bridge.
Yeah, it's basically right next door to the original.
Well, you can actually see at the turnaround point, you can see the actual original start-finish area of the Murray Bridge course.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have a lot to do with any of that, but my understanding is, they wanted to redevelop the wharf area, which meant... Yeah. Oh, no, sorry. No, not the wharf area. The bridge. And... Okay. Because the...
Oh, that's right, because of the reworks on the road bridge.
Yes, and yeah, like, as you know, that bridge goes over the Parkrun course, so yeah, they had to close all that off. And we did have a B course, but that got damaged by the flooding, so that was taken out of the equation.
And the B course wasn't really ideal anyway, because there was no toilet facilities there, as opposed to, well, I guess there is toilet facilities at the new course, it's just a little bit further away, but yeah, at the end of the day, the community has been able to relocate to a new location, and as you know, I went back over there a couple of weeks ago and completed my 250th there, and it was fantastic to be so I never left, to be honest with you. I mean, there was people there that obviously have been involved with Parkrun over there when I first started, yourself included, your mum as well, and your sister, which are still actively involved, which is awesome to hear. And it was fantastic that we had a couple of mutual friends come along who hadn't been to a Parkrun since I left in 2019, almost 6 years. So it was good to see them come back, and to my understanding, they were back there last Saturday as well, which was fantastic. So,
Yeah.
no, great community there, and I know that both Wendy, who's still one of the co-event directors, as well as Todd has moved up and replaced Damien, is doing an awesome job. And I know that you're also involved as a part of the local run group called the Murraybridge Run Crew, which is an awesome group of people. So it's good to see that you've got back in your running, but that's been a bit of a challenge too, hasn't it? In terms of literally almost learning how to run again.
Yeah, well, recovering from the operation, I had to learn to walk again, essentially. Which was just sort of, walking lap to the backyard on my walking stick and a couple of laps and I was cooked. But just kept sticking at it. And I had a few people recommend Donna Yench Brown. She's got a huge reputation in this town, and I was about to find out why.
Okay.
I went to her rehab gym, and we'd crossed paths at Parkrun, so she knew who I was and what I was probably there to do as soon as I walked in the door. So she designed a program for me, and I'd go in there 3 times a week and just kind of work on very basic movements, just to try and get just your everyday function back. And throughout this time, I was also seeing doctors and physios and just really just throwing mud at the wall until something stuck. I was trying everything. And I kept asking doctors and whatnot, when can I run again? And they went, maybe try swimming or cycling instead. And I thought, would you stop saying this? And then, one day I was in the gym, and Donna came up to me and she said, and this was after I think a year or 2 of doing these rehab sessions, and Donna said to me, so did you want to get back into running? I said, yeah. She goes, all right, let's do it. I went, that's what I wanted to hear. And then she drew up a program, designed it, getting me back into running. And it was still, because the second operation left me with chronic pain, so I was the back pain had come back, and I still had the nerve pain in my left leg, and the numbness is still there to this day. So yeah, learning to run again, it kind of did hurt to move. But then, while all this was going on, I was on a waiting list for the pain management unit at Flinders Medical Centre. And I got a phone call one day, and they said, you've made it off the waiting list, so come in, let's have a chat. So that was early 2023. Started going in there for a few appointments, and we just kind of experimented with a few different medications to see what worked. And I started off with a couple that worked in conjunction, and they took the pain right away, but they made me super drowsy. So I think, the kind of experimenting with those drugs went on for about a month or so, and I have no memory of that month.
Yeah, I was going to say, because when I had a conversation, obviously last week when we tried to do the first take, but also when I went over a couple of weeks ago, I didn't realise the impact that it actually you went through with that, in terms of how much it is affected your memory and so forth. Because you said to me, look, there's lots of things you're still learning about parkrun that going back, and I guess this is from my perspective, it's being a bit of a parkrun addict. You make an assumption that people know everything that you know, but you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so, it's a great thing that, you've been able to still work through it. But yeah, I mean, the whole memory and the cognitive adjustment that you've had to take, had to work through would have been very challenging, no doubt.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing where you just don't, you just don't understand what it's like until you go through it, because, every now and then I'll mention something that has happened throughout this process, and the response will be, oh, shit, I didn't even think of that. Like when I did first start getting back into running, one of the things that I hadn't anticipated was, because my left foot was still numb, the very first step I took on a run
would have been like a dead weight going down. It's a bit like when someone sort of sits on their leg awkwardly and their leg goes to sleep and they get up and they try and walk and they almost fall over. But you've got that permanently, yeah?
Yes, yep, that's it. So, once my foot hit the ground, because I couldn't feel it, my brain went into panic mode because it had no idea what was happening. And I very nearly face planted. That was just that was my very first step. So
that learning process happened pretty quickly, or did it take a couple of sessions before you really started to get the hang of it?
It took a minute, because it's kind of like your brain kind of thinks you're running around on one leg, and you just
if that's possible.
Yeah,
some would call it hopping.
That's it. But yeah, like you're running normally, but your brain just can't process it, so it takes a while to adjust. And I just kind of, every now and then I think, if I did wake up one morning and the feeling had come back, I'd probably have to adjust again, because I've just got used to running with this, like you said, dead weight.
It's good to see that you're back at it and you're back out there. You're still volunteering, because I know you volunteered on the day that I was there, which was fantastic. If you could change, let's get a little bit more specific around the parkrun component and your experience and your thoughts. If there's one thing in parkrun that you could change, and let's say we brought it to the table and Parkrun Global was to say, yep, that's a great idea, let's run with it. I know you shared this one with me last week, and I'm hoping you're going to touch on the same one. I think it's a great idea, right? What would it be?
Well, so every now and then Parkrun will have a pacer event where you'll have people volunteering as a pacer to pace out, say, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 35 minutes, etc. I would really like it if we could do that every week, but then that's a lot more spots on the volunteer roster you've got to fill, and like we already have a lot of dedicated volunteers, and you really don't want to ask any more of them. And you can operate a parkrun without pacers, obviously we do, but it would be nice to have it every week, but it would be an absolute luxury.
Yeah. So let's explore that idea, and I think this is where we discussed a little bit further last week too, that what could potentially happen is you have a dedicated location at, say, one of the Adelaide events. It could be a flat event where, something like, Pack Up a Canty, for example, where you could say, well, that's the dedicated pacer event that happens every week. I reckon that's got great merit. So, I think it's a good idea, and this is the sort of thing I want to bring to the table, because one of the ideas that I'd love to see happen is a pet barcode introduced.
Yes.
The scanning process and the recording process would be no different. Sure, you might need to have a separate, you'd need to have a separate pile of tokens where, actually, you probably wouldn't even need that, in all honesty, because the only difference there is the actual, instead of being an A code, it could be a P code. Not hard. So,
yeah, and given that your dog's going to be on leads, really, you could probably scan the athlete and the pet on the same finish token.
Yeah, look, you possibly could, but given the fact that what happens in the scenario, and this is where it could be worked through too, where 1 week you're running with your dog, and say your mum decides to take it 1 week because your dog's not really a runner, it's a walker, and you want to run it. You know what I mean? So that's where I think maybe the merit of having the separate finish token for them would be to go. But it wouldn't be hard. You have a table for your athletes and you have a table for your pets through the same event location. Now, we touched on the fact that you have attended a few other locations in terms of touristing. If you had one location that would be a dream parkrun location, where would it be?
Well, there are quite a few little country towns around Murray Bridge that don't have a parkrun, and I think Manham, just up the river from Murray Bridge, would be a beautiful spot for a parkrun if they can make it happen.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And it wouldn't be that challenging. I mean, I know there's got quite a few levee banks and that around there, so, they could potentially get the local council to do a bit of work and make that a little bit more workable, because as you know, Parkrun Global have rules around how courses, intersect with roads and driveways and things like that. But yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Now, we've spoken a couple of positive things. Let's flip it onto a negative angle. Is there anything that annoys you about Parkrun that if you could change it, and I guess let our audience know and say, hey, you guys play a part in this, what would it be?
Well...
Is that going to spanner in the works or what?
Yeah.
Well, you've got nothing negative to say about Parkrun. That's probably the point.
Oh, mate. The only negative thing about Parkrun is it's only once a week.
Totally agree. There you go. That's another idea. Let's have a midweek Parkrun in tourist.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was actually thinking on Anzac Day, you can have a parkrun on Christmas Day and a parkrun on New Year's Day. I just kind of thought, why can't we have them on more public holidays, like an Anzac Day or a Good Friday or something like that?
Well, to my understanding, every country that participates in Parkrun has the capacity to have 2 extra days, and that's the reason why we can only do it. I agree with you. I'd love to see one. I'd love to see one on Australia Day, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Let's do away with it. Let's do away with the New Year's Day one and move it to Australia Day, because every other country generally participates and has it on a special day. I had the fortunate position to go over to Singapore last year and do one on their special day, which happened to fall on the Friday. So we did a parkrun on the Friday and a completely different one on the Saturday, because you can literally travel from one side of the island to the other side of the island. I think it's only like 15 k's long. It's not long at all. But I wouldn't disagree with you there. Do you have any funny or memorable experiences from a parkrun?
There's a few after 10 years. Memorable, there was one very recently where I ran alongside my sister Courtney, and she ran 5Ks without stopping for the first time.
Awesome.
That was pretty cool. We had our friend Tegan there for support. Very brutal support, but support nonetheless.
Sometimes you've got to be tough to be kind.
Yes, tough love. But I'll always... So, when I did go over to America, I was planning on doing the parkrun at San Francisco. And I actually hadn't registered for Parkrun when I did my first one, so technically my second one was my first one. So the last one I did before I went to America was sort of my 100th, and then I was going to do my official 100th in San Francisco. And then, I ended up staying in America for a few extra days, specifically for being there on the Saturday. And then Saturday rolled around and the event had been cancelled because of smoke from wildfires. And I went, oh, no, that's cool. I'll just pop back next weekend. No worries. And no, but I walked outside and there was just smoke everywhere. I went, yeah, good call. You can't run in that.
Yeah, I remember during that time, you were posting information, and the mutual friend who we talked about before, Alan and Sally, they lived over in the US for a period of time, and it became a bit of a topical situation about how bad the air quality was. So yeah, it's pretty ordinary.
Yeah.
So, milestones and any personal goal achievements, you got any there with the parkrun, or you just take every parkrun in its own merit?
I don't really pay much attention to those numbers. I'll love to celebrate a milestone when it comes around, but for the most part, I just kind of turn up every week and let the numbers take care of themselves. And then when something does come up, out come the party poppers.
Because there is a story about party poppers. I believe you keep them in your motor vehicle, but there's also, with that too, and you forgot to mention this, which I think comes back into the memorable or funny category. I recall someone dressing up as a certain Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Oh, that's right. That's where I was going with the San Francisco story. So you reminded me. So when I came back home, and I'd been in America over Halloween, and they get right into it over there. So while I was there, a group of 4 of us got together and bought Ninja Turtle costumes, and we all went to Halloween together as the Ninja Turtles, which was fun. And my costume found its way back to Australia with me. So, and when I went to my 100th parkrun, I thought, why not dress for the occasion? So this was in November, so pretty warm kind of day. Put on this Ninja Turtle costume, which had a lot of padding, ideal for winter. And there's a photo of me running in that suit. It must have been the second lap, because my tongue was out. I looked like I was roasting, because I was. And look, I have very few regrets about Parkrun. That suit, not one of them.
That's good. That's good. I also believe there was a photo taken on the day where you with the turtle that was laying on its back with your legs in the air as well on the grass. Was that right?
Probably happened.
Yeah, I reckon there was. I do recall seeing something like that, because it was quite hysterical. One final thought or word to anybody that has tuned in and listened to this podcast around their, they may not be yet accustomed to the parkrun way. Any final thoughts or suggestions or thing you'd like to say?
Well, if anything, I'll probably just reiterate what you and Karen touched on in episode 1, where it's really more about the sense of community you get, rather than the run. Like you've said, it's become an important part of people's weekly ritual. You pencil in that Saturday morning for parkrun, and it's sort of, for me anyway, it's more about catching up with the other parkrunners and going out for coffee or brunch afterwards. And it's got a real social aspect to it that you might not realize until you actually get in there and experience it for yourself.
Yeah, well, I totally agree. And it's not uncommon for that group there in Murray Bridge to still be sitting at the table having a chat and so forth at 11 a.m.
Oh, absolutely.
So particularly during winter too, I found that too. They do still come out, and even though the weather has can be quite ordinary. Well, anywhere really during winter, but definitely the fog and how cold it gets there. I do recall sitting up numerous times where it's below 0 degrees. So definitely agree with you there. Damo, I've loved having this chat with you. I love catching up with you and hearing about what's going on in your life. Thank you so much for wanting to be involved with enthusiasm with this podcast. And for the benefit of the listener, if you happen to be over in Murray Bridge and you happen to be attending Narooma Wetlands Parkrun and Damo's there, don't be afraid to go up there and to him and say good day, because he's a really absolutely awesome bloke to have a chat with, and I'm sure that he would be more than happy to tell you a few more stories about Parkrun. So Damo, loved having you on board. Thanks, mate.
Thank you, Billo.
Wish you well, and I will certainly obviously keep in touch with you, my friend. So until then, thanks for an awesome podcast.
Happy to do it. Love your work.
Cheers, mate.